Hey everybody, Paranormal Video Gamer here. So I wanted to talk about something that's been going on the internet for a little while now, especially gaming wise. And the reason I want to talk about this is because, at least to me, it's important. It's very important. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I am a collector. I collect video games. I have ever since I was 5 years old. I have in my opinion, I have a very impressive physical collection of a lot of old systems and games. Why do I collect them? Because at some point, there is going to be a limited amount of systems and video games that people will be able to play. Because copies of games have been destroyed, systems have been destroyed, they burn out. And I want to keep those games, those systems preserved, so when I go to retire, when I go to stop working, when I get old, and it's inevitable, I'm going to get old, and eventually I'm going to die. This is until they can figure out how to make us immortal, which I don't think that's coming anytime soon. I have to look at it from the perspective of I'm preserving video games. I'm preserving systems and games for future generations that can look back and be like, wow, that's an old game. Look at that. Look how the graphics were. And then you've got systems way past me, let's say, I'm just putting this out there, like PlayStation 27, okay? So, in the future, PlayStation 27 comes out, and kids then look at the video games that I've collected. Somebody buys the system that I took care of. And by the way, every system that I have, I've opened it up on the case, and I put something on the inside of it so people know I owned it at one point. There's actually my name in almost every single system that I have owned. And I made sure I did that because I wanted people, when they go to maintain the equipment inside, I wanted them to open up the case and be like, this was once owned by PVG. And then they can look up a little bit of history about who I am. Maybe find this video even. It is preserving not just my legacy, but the game's legacy that I don't think people realize. We are slowly losing video game history. And the reason I'm saying this is because Ubisoft, like a lot of people have been talking about, put a clause in the terms of service for Ubisoft for owning any of their games. If they decide to terminate the game, if they decide to stop supporting the game, they expect you to uninstall and delete your game, because you don't own that game anymore. You had a license to it to play it, but you don't own that game. And I never agreed to buy a game and not own it. When I spend my money on a game, in my opinion, I own it. I didn't buy a license. I bought a digital copy, or I bought a physical copy of that game, because I wanted to keep that game in my personal collection to be able to play it. Even if I don't play it all the time, I still want to be able to play it. And this is why a lot of games that are the online only games, most of them I do not buy. Now, there are a occasion of games I do buy, I have bought in the past. Like, I did buy Anthem long after it came out, and I told people that this is going to be a disaster, and no one believed me. There's a video where I said, after seeing the game and looking at it and seeing like how the gameplay was like Armored Core meets Iron Man meets like Superman type of vibe, I said there's no way that this game is going to succeed, and it's not going to be a big game. And I was right. Look what's going on with Anthem now. Now they're trying to get rid of Anthem. They're trying to shut down the servers, which means that if you go to play Anthem in the future, let's say a year from now after they shut off the servers, you're not going to be able to play it at all. And there's a movement to save Anthem, and I agree with the movement. There should be, and every game, even if it's an online game, if you have a physical copy, you should be able to pop that in the system of your choice, boot up the game, and at least play it in a sense. Even if it's not the full online game, you should be able to play that game because you spend money on that game. Regardless if it's a physical or if it's a digital game, you should be able to play that game offline. Even if it's just non-playable characters, even if the game is buggy as all hell, there should be a portion of that game that you should be able to play. Well, according to Ubisoft, you don't own your games. You license them, and they are telling you that in their new terms of service, you have to destroy your games. Literally. They're telling you, me, everybody else, in their terms of service, that once they stop supporting the game, you have to uninstall and destroy your game. Even if it's a physical copy, they want you to destroy your game. I never agreed to that. I never agreed to destroy my game collection just because an executive person has decided that, oh, well, they don't own the game, even if it's a physical copy. They don't own it. They just license the game, and we sell them a copy of that license. No. No. I never agreed to that. And I would have never agreed to start collecting video games back in the early day if I knew that those games that I have would be completely useless. That's why most of my physical collection that I have, which I have a lot of games that are physical copies, I want to be able to play those games. That's why I support Stop Killing Games. That's why I support the Anthem movement to get the game preserved. That's why I would like to see Friday the 13th completely preserved, which you could still play it offline, which is great. Even though you only play as Jason, at least there's a portion of the game you could still play. Dead by Daylight. I hope that when that game gets shut down, which I don't know how long that's going to last. Destiny, another game. Destiny 2, another game that potentially could shut down, and then that's it. You can't play it anymore. Destiny I'm more concerned about than Destiny 2, because it seems like Destiny 2, there would be a way for you to play it offline. But again, some of the games I'm listing, Fallout 76, another game that is completely online, and I hope they allow you to preserve it and be able to play it, because it is a decent game, and going through the map is a lot of fun. But I have concerns, and we all should be concerned. If you're a gamer and you're watching this video, you are just like me. You understand that there's a probability that we could lose so many games, and then eventually there's no digital footprint of those games. There's no physical footprint of those games. Those games, the discs, they stop being manufactured, and then, somebody breaks the last disc ever, and there's no copy of it whatsoever. This is why I am a person that believes that if you've bought a game before, if you bought a physical copy like I did with a lot of my PlayStation 1 games that I had back in the day, to give everybody a little perspective, my parents, when I lived in their house, had a massive flood that happened in the basement section of our house. And in the flood, in the basement, I had a lot of my PlayStation 1 games. Now, there wasn't hundreds of them. There was probably about 70, 75 games that were in that basement section in a box. We weren't expecting a flood. We weren't expecting any kind of damage to happen with those discs. Well, unfortunately, the flood happened, and the water was so high that it literally drowned everything that was in my collection at that time. And I tried to save the discs, but a lot of them were so waterlogged that they would not play because the damage to the actual discs, because of all the stuff that the flood water brought in. There were, chemicals, I'm sure, that from the environment. My dad had actually sprayed some chemicals on the outside of the house like a few days prior to the flood, to like weed killer and some other things. And I'm sure that contributed to the destruction of those discs, but those discs were destroyed. There was no way I could do anything with saving those games, and I tried. I cleaned every single disc. I spent hours cleaning and re-cleaning, trying to get those games to play again, because I was like, crap, I just lost pretty much a quarter of my collection. So now all my game discs, every single disc that I have, is now in a case, but also protected. And the reason I do that is for preservation. This is going to be a little bit longer video than normal, so I apologize for that. But still, we need to preserve games. Ubisoft needs to stop dictating what you can do with your games and how you can do certain things for your games. Because at the end of the day, those games were written and given to the people that absolutely love those games, and those people worked really hard on them. Those people that you see in the credits, a lot of them worked really hard to make those games, and those games should be preserved, just like old games, just like retro games. And this is why I think piracy, getting a copy of a game digitally that you used to own, got destroyed, I think should be allowed. I honestly think that if you are saving your game to play it later, you're not selling the game. You're downloading a copy of the game so you can play the game and enjoy the game forever, since you already had bought it, should be legal. You should be able to say, I own that game, it was destroyed, the digital copy was taken from me, I would like to keep that game in my library or be able to play that game. But Ubisoft and a lot of companies, they don't want you doing that. They want you to not have access to that game, to not be able to play that game ever again. And I disagree with that. And you probably hear my huskies growling at each other because they're playing. But we need to preserve them. And that's just how it's got to be. As a gamer, I love my collection. And I'll be damned when a company tells me what I can do with my copy of the game and what I can't do with the copy of my game that I paid for. But that's just my opinion. Let me know in the comments below what you think. And as always, thank you for watching.